Hey there, folks. It's another OUinsider.com post-practice blitz. Parker Thune alongside Brandon Drum. And boy, is it going to be an interesting week around these parts. Jackson Arnold makes his return to Norman, Oklahoma in the opposing team's uniform. He returns as the starting quarterback of the 3-0 Auburn Tigers, looking pretty good early in the season. So too, though, are the Sooners. And obviously, this is going to be the biggest storyline of the week, Brandon. And there are going to be a ton of sub-headlines that spur up therein. Just the overall dynamic of Jackson Arnold making his return. When we got the chance to talk to Oklahoma coaches and players. Well, I shouldn't say coaches. We got the chance to hear from Brent Venables via his coach's show last night. Also got the chance to touch base with a few players after practice. Nobody's really willing, as you would expect, to put bulletin board material out there. There seems to be largely a respect for what Jackson Arnold contributed at the University of Oklahoma and a desire to keep the focus on the matchup between the Sooners and Tigers as opposed to the matchup between the Sooners and Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, look, we asked everybody, I think, about Jackson, even John Mateer, obviously, but he has a relationship with Jackson that predates, college. I'm sure they camped together, trained together, did all that type of stuff growing up together, played against each other, and he talked about playing against Eli Payton and Jackson at Denton Geyer and not having a very good day. Nobody outside of DeSoto, I don't think, had a very good day against them during the time that we covered them. But yeah, there is no beef straight down to, Kobe McKenzie, who was fairly close to Jackson. Even talked about, just no ill will. Got to stop him. They said, good player. They miss having him around, as friends and all that type of stuff. But you weren't going to get any of the negativity that fans want to hear in that media, that low-hanging fruit talking point that everybody just is trying to gather as much quotes as you possibly can on this return home of the prodigal son type of deal that they've got going on. But I don't think it's that, Parker. I really don't. I think it's Auburn, Oklahoma, inside the Switzer Center, and it's very matter of fact. By the way, PJ Adebawara is the most matter of fact human being we've ever interviewed.
Yeah, it's pretty true.
Ever. You can ask him a very easy question and he will give you, and then when he realizes that he has to give more than 2 words, he'll just start saying stuff just to get, just to the add to the quote. He's like, yeah, it's just that. Yep, you're good. Right. You're right. And I'm like, okay. I asked him about Jackson Arnold's feet, Parker, and his wheels.
Pause.
Wheels?
You asked him about Jackson Arnold.
Running
that could be interpreted a variety.
Yeah, okay. If you're being perverted, yes, you could. It could be very perversion.
It just sounds weird to say.
I don't know anybody
about Jackson Arnold's feet.
I don't know anybody that has a foot fetish around me, and I hope not on the OU football team.
If the DC had been Rex Ryan, then maybe.
Yes. They would have put every foot forward to stop him. But, Wes Welker. That was great. Anyways, we're totally digressing here. But yeah, I asked him, it literally was like, okay. And God bless James Hale. He turned and he goes, he's asking about his speed, man. Like, cause he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, well, all quarterbacks, defensive ends, blah, blah, blah. And he expounded on it, but I was like, dude, like that was the easy. I'm obviously asking about the run game of Auburn here with Jackson Arnold. And he knew it, but he's so matter of fact that I don't know. And then obviously last night there was another couple of questions, and then Eddie kind of goes, you weren't there, but there were some really strange questions asked at the very end of that deal, where Eddie said, you're released, man, just to end it. And Mike Houck in the back, I believe, or somebody in the back is like, you're good to go, PJ. And like just trying to end the interview session. Because none of us had it, but you know where I'm going with this, when who was probably asking the most random questions, period.
Moving on.
You don't want to touch it.
Kendall
He said, I'm
Dolby.
moving on.
Kendall Dolby made his return to play last weekend against Temple. A little bit ahead of schedule, right? Because Auburn had been the rough target date for not only Dolby, but for Giovanni Gibson and Eli Bowen as well. So you have Kendall Dolby back in the mix. We'll see about Bowen. We'll see about Gibson. We'll see what they're listed as when we get our first availability
What do you
report
think they
of the
are? By the
season
way, just
on
predict
Wednesday.
it. Just predict it. What do you think? What do you think?
I would say on the initial availability report, they will both be listed as questionable.
I agree. Now, do you think they play?
I think there's a better chance Bowen plays than that Gibson plays.
I agree with that. I kind of, from a conversation I had late last night, I feel like it's trending very well for Eli. And that's about the only thing I could say. I'm not definitively saying it, but it felt like the conversation I had last night that he's moving in a very, very good direction to
I
play this
think
week.
it could be another week before we see Giovanni Gibson, but things look reasonably promising right now with regard to their odds to get Eli Bowen back. And again, there's a chance with Giovanni. I just think the chance is higher with Eli than
Yeah.
with Gibson. But regardless, Brandon, you get some key pieces back in the mix, the key guys that you had been without for the first 3 games of the season. Now, no R. Mason Thomas for the first half of this football game. That's significant. But as we discussed in the post-game podcast immediately following OU's victory over Temple on Saturday, it feels like this defense is strong enough and deep enough that you can remove one guy from the equation and it's not going to drastically alter the overall outlook. Even though R. Mason Thomas is an outstanding football player, his absence for one half doesn't feel like it's going to be something that is going to significantly affect Oklahoma's ability to stop Auburn.
So I do agree with what you're saying. The only caveat I would throw out there to that is the way the other players have been playing. Has it been because our Mason's been on the field? Like, our offenses scheming our Mason and allowing one-on-ones, with other players and stuff like that? I don't know. I have to go literally deep dive and watch almost every play of 3 games to figure that out. I know there's been a lot of 13 personnel and stuff like that. And I would assume that Auburn's going to run a lot of, heavy formations to make sure that that offensive front doesn't get, regardless of who's in there, Parker.
Yeah.
And that's your point, is that defensive front's so good and so talented that they're probably going to get pressure one way or the other, and you're going to have to scheme for that regardless. So, um, I I just want to know: are we going to get to see Danny Okoye finally flash this game, particularly in the first half with our Mason Thomas out? Is that going to be kind of the launching point for Danny Okoye? And I asked PJ that, by the way, and he said when he goes, there's a good chance that when Danny gets out there, he's a physical freak and he is going to be a superstar. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, I mean
You would
that's what I'm
assume,
watching for.
you would
Because
assume, wouldn't you, especially given that he was made available to the media last night, that PJ is
yeah,
going to draw the start. He's
I
going
would
to
assume
draw
so. Yes,
what I believe offhand will be his first start as an Oklahoma Sooner. So big
he's
deal for
been really
PJ.
good.
He has been pretty good through 3 games. Done some impressive stuff, starting to round into form and starting to show those flashes again that we saw from him as a freshman of the 5-star creature that he was coming out of high school. But yeah, Danny Okoye, you would
Mhm.
assume. Brent Venables mentioned last night he's going to be healthy. He's going to be available. That's the expectation after he sat out the Temple game. You would assume he'll be in the mix for snaps as well. And I didn't necessarily expect this, just given how deliberate Oklahoma as an institution has historically been with the concussion protocol, but it sounds like, and Brent Venables kind of confirmed it last night on his coach's show as well, Keontez Lewis appears to be on track to play this Saturday. So, huge
That
news.
was shocking. Yeah,
Hugely
that was
positive
shocking.
development for Oklahoma because, yeah, you're missing R. Mason Thomas for a half, no doubt, but you want to be firing on all cylinders offensively. And having one of your starting wide receivers out of the mix for your SEC opener, not ideal. If you can have Keontez Lewis active for this football game, you'd like Keontez Lewis active for this football game, and it sounds like that should be the case.
It does. He's been one of your better players. Isaiah Satania, obviously Deion Burks. That's been kind of the trio that's carried OU's offense in the
Yep.
passing game. So yeah, you need Keontae Lewis. He's he's been a great possession receiver for Oklahoma, particularly across the middle. Now, I think the question at this point is, is he gun shy going across the middle after what happened on last Saturday? And I think it's a fair question that he took a shot, man. So I'm just happy that he's a vet because that was a scary thing, you know. And to come back that quickly it's impressive.
We'll track it throughout the week, and we will have a very helpful resource in the availability report because it is the first game of SEC play this season for Oklahoma. A very consequential test lies ahead for this team and for the team on the other sideline, Auburn. This is a proving ground for them. Can they assert themselves as a college football playoff contender? I think that conversation would start to spark up if they were to come to
Hmm.
Norman, Oklahoma and win. So 2:30 kick on Saturday, much at stake for both these teams, and we will continue to cover every angle of this matchup throughout the week for all of you at OUinsider.com. Subscribe over there if you haven't already. It's just $1 for your first week. You don't like it, you don't have to stick around, but we'll give you plenty of reasons to stick around. Make no mistake about that. Certainly subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. That doesn't cost you a dime, doesn't put you on a mailing list, doesn't start sending you text notifications. It's just a real easy way to keep up with everything we're doing on the visual side here at OU Insider. For Brandon Drum, I am Parker Thune. Folks, we'll see you later in the week with an Under the Visor pregame podcast in advance of OU Auburn. Until then, take it easy.